Hi, I'm Matt Silverman. On behalf of the Tampa Bay Rays and Tampa Bay Rowdies, I'd like to thank the Florida Holocaust Museum for all its work in our community, and I'd like to thank you all for attending the Two Life Gala.
evening and welcome to Life 2021. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are Rachel and Don Worthington. Our involvement with the Florida Holocaust Museum began in 2011 when we met Holocaust survivors Liesl Schick and Tony and John Rindy. They soon discovered that my father had been involved in the World War II Liberation Force that freed a camp in Czechoslovakia. They invited him to speak at the museum, which he did. This experience was so indelibly etched in his memory that at age 91, he spoke for over an hour without notes, using a map to show us where his troop was that day, when they encountered the camp, how they followed the death march of prisoners away from the camp, where days later he ordered a brass monument to be erected by villagers in memory of those who had died there, and how a few years later he took my mother back to show her the monument and it had disappeared. He knew firsthand how important it is to keep Holocaust history alive. After that, I was asked to join the board, and I did, as a way of honoring my father, who died in 2012. Since then, I have been amazed by the tireless dedication of the museum's staff and board and the generosity and commitment of the donors and members. All of us are united in working to fulfill the museum's mission, which is to remember the Holocaust, honor those who suffered and died by telling their stories, and to teach the public to recognize the inherent worth of every human being. This mission today is more important than ever. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for supporting the Florida Holocaust Museum.
Thank you, Rachel. During most of my life, the Holocaust seemed just another history book story in our sordid human history, not especially different from other stories. However, several years ago, I met Holocaust survivors for the first time. Hearing their stories changed my life. I suddenly realized the importance of keeping such a terrible story from ever needing to be told again. Participating in the mission of the Florida Holocaust Museum has been a very meaningful way for me to live out the critically important work of doing all that I can do to remember the men and the women and the children who suffered and perished at the hands of the Nazis, and to help the world say never again to this barbaric treatment of fellow human beings. Thank you so much for your support of this all-important cause.
Tampa, we're Mike and Amy Southard. We are very happy you're joining us for To Life and glad you're here with us. The program will begin shortly.
Amy and I support the Florida Holocaust Museum mainly because of the education efforts you put forth to teach young children about the devastating effects of the Holocaust. And this is something that we can never forget.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you enjoying the pre-show, we hope you're getting ready for what is going to be an amazing To Life Gala benefiting the Florida Holocaust Museum. We need to make sure that everyone watching this evening is registered for our program. If you're watching this, that means that you are already registered, especially if you're watching on a link that you were sent. But if you're watching with other people, and maybe you're using someone else's link to watch it as a group, we encourage you to get registered yourself. And getting registered is very simple. All you have to do is go to fhm2life.org. Whether you want to do that through your phone or if you got a computer nearby, whatever it may be, I'll say that web address again. It's fhm2life.org. If you go to that web address, you will get registered and be good to go for that full immersive experience for the entirety of our program. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just moments away from beginning the 2021 virtual To Life Gala. So if you haven't already found the most comfortable chair in your house, maybe poured your glass of wine or made yourself a cocktail, now's the time to do so. Our show starts in just a few minutes.
Welcome to our virtual To Life Gala. I'm Ruth.
And I'm Michelle. Thank you for joining us.
For many of us, last year's To Life was the last large in-person event we attended. To Life, these two words that have so much meaning to the Florida Holocaust Museum, and the theme of our gala every year has taken on even greater significance this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as we've all been impacted in some way by COVID.
This has been a hard year for many in our community, especially for nonprofits, and the museum is no exception. The museum had to adjust to closing our doors to live visitors. With schools closed, it's meant a long pause in the thousands of students who visit the museum with their classes. Instead, classrooms have done virtual tours and Zoomed with survivors. Your support this evening brings a ray of sunshine into a very tough year and helps to position the museum for the world we all hope is right around the corner. We're grateful to our sponsors this evening, including our visionary sponsors, Sandy Mermelstein and Kent Scooter Bontley, and our champion sponsors, Crofton Cares, Amy and Michael Southard, the Sembler and Cammons family, and Rachel and Donald Worthington. As you can see on your screen, all of the other generous sponsors who've made this evening possible. Thank you all.
Michelle, let's not forget our amazing committee who worked so hard to make this year's unique Two Life event a success. Thank you all. I am the daughter of an immigrant who fled Russia as a child and was forever cut off from his extended family. From my father, I learned to defy expectations. One of the tragedies of the Holocaust is that millions lost their parents, grandparents, siblings, and extended family. The artist Samuel Bach, himself a child survivor of the Holocaust, alludes to this when he paints rootless trees floating untethered from the ground. Holocaust survivors put down roots here in the US and in the Tampa Bay area, where they, their children, and grandchildren have contributed in myriad ways to the fabric of our community. You'll hear more about that when we present tonight's Legacy Award later in this evening's program.
This is the year of hope. As the grandchild of Holocaust survivors, I know the importance of never losing hope. I learned from my grandparents to stand up for what you believe in and stay strong. I also developed a deep appreciation for Jewish tradition and values. Tonight you'll see one Holocaust survivor's amazing story of hope from her childhood in Germany to the present day as she shares her story of survival with new generations. We're thrilled too that tonight you'll meet the nation's foremost Holocaust educator, our Lobenberg Humanitarian Award honoree.
So let's begin this evening's program. It gives us great pleasure to have Jason Alpert with us to guide us on our journey to a successful evening in support of the museum. Welcome, Jason.
Ruth and Michelle, thank you for everything you've done as the chairs of the Two Life Gala, the Florida Holocaust Museum's largest single fundraising event. Your leadership has set the tone for this night, a night full of honorees, a night including an amazing story of survivors and the miracle discovery 8 decades in the making of one survivor as she fled Nazi Germany with her parents, and also a night full of giving to a cause that so many of us hold near and dear to our hearts. The Florida Holocaust Museum started almost 30 years ago. More than 3 decades ago, the namesake of tonight's headlining award, the Lobenberg Award, Wally and Edith Lobenberg founded what we now know as the Florida Holocaust Museum. But it's always been more than just a museum. It's an ideology that perfectly reflects its mission statement, which is in 2 distinct parts. First, to honor the memory of millions of innocent men, women, and children who suffered or died in the Holocaust. And secondly, to teach the members of all races and cultures the inherent worth and dignity of human life in order to prevent future genocides. My family has been a part of the Florida Holocaust Museum since day one. We've added another generation since then, and the next generation isn't far behind. A next generation to never forget and to teach to never forget and to celebrate to life, which is what we're doing here tonight as we raise funds for this amazing institution. As we go through the program this evening, you will hear from our honorees and other special guests. And during that time, I hope you'll think about what a gem the museum is to the Tampa Bay community and to the state of Florida. While we will have our dedicated Bid from the Heart part of the program later in the show, at any point you feel compelled to give, you can do so through our Qtego platform. Qtego is our mobile donating partner that you're using right now to watch this program. Now, if you're watching the program using a link that you have been sent, you are good to go. You are logged in and registered. If you're watching this program with someone else and maybe using their link to watch the program, you must register yourself in order to have that full immersive experience. How do you register? It's very simple. All you have to do is go to fhm2life.org. I'll say it one more time, fhm2life.org. If you go to that web address, you can quickly get registered and, as I mentioned, have that full immersive experience. At any point throughout the program, you can click on the donate button on whatever device you're logged into to make a contribution to the Florida Holocaust Museum. During the Bid from the Heart part of the program, we will acknowledge each and every one of our donors, no matter when they made their donation. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that we were going to share with you an amazing story of a miracle 80 years in the making, and one of the many reasons that this year is the year of hope. It's a story that is going to be told in 3 parts throughout tonight's program. It's a story that reinforces the importance of Holocaust survivors, reinforces the mission of never forget, and reinforces tonight's theme, To Life.
It was very gradual. The whole thing was very gradual. The Hitler Youth kids were out there. They used to be my friends. They lived right around where we lived in the same apartment building.
One day you're playing with them.
One day, and the next day they called me a dirty Jew. And they were wearing all the nice little uniforms, you know, with the swastikas and everything else. And they went off on picnics and all that. And I said to my mother, I want to go too. They're having such a good time. They're singing, they're marching. And she said, that's not for us. We're Jews. And we have to be very careful. Crystal Night itself, my father fortunately had come home from work. And he had a very good job with the stationery firm. And we sat on the floor in our apartment in the dark. And we were told not to make a sound. She didn't want the neighbors to know that we were home. And we could hear the screaming and the yelling outside and people looking for Jews and yelling, saying, you know, kill the Jews and all that. And then we stayed home for a day or so after that. And then we went out and we saw our synagogue was in all ashes, you know. They had burnt it down. And there was so much glass on the street. And they had Jewish people come out with their toothbrushes, I'm not making this up, and had them kneel on the street and scrub the street while people were around there jeering at them. Just before we were ready to leave, my father took me to meet my best girlfriend. We had been together for 3 years, from the age of 6 till 9. In Berlin in school, and she was my very best friend, and we did everything together. But as we all know, at that point, we were not allowed to go to playgrounds anymore, or swimming pools, or parks, or anything like that we used to do before. So we played in each other's homes. It was just a wonderful friendship, and we had to say goodbye to each other. So we said goodbye, and we cried, and we didn't want to part, and they pulled us away from each other and said, well, you have to go now. And so I never saw her again.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Michael Eagle, and I am the grandson, great-nephew, and nephew of Holocaust survivors. Several members of my family are amongst the millions who were murdered. It is with them, along with all victims and survivors in mind, that I am proud to be the board chair of the Florida Holocaust Museum. Being a descendant of Holocaust survivors cannot be put into words. The lows are low. For example, my grandparents died when I was relatively young. My father and many of the generations after group never met any of their grandparents. That's because they were murdered. For some, like me, both sides of the family were devastated. But the good news here is the stories also have an especially motivating impact. Growing up, my grandparents used the lens of their experience to teach us about the importance of family, perseverance, strength, and humanity. They always told us that their lives would endure as long as we tell their story. It forged my commitment to continue doing just that. Every child hopes to learn lessons from their grandparents. And as for me, I remember my grandfather used to say, treat the janitor the same way you treat the CEO. As I've gotten older, that lesson is especially resonant with me as I consider how much it meant to him to make sure I treat everyone with dignity. To illustrate the greatness in people, even in the worst of times, my grandparents often told us the story of the Gala family. During the war, the Garulas were relative strangers who hid my family in a barn on the Gala property. Literally one day after my family was moved to another location for safety, the Garulas were exposed by their neighbors for hiding Jews. They were immediately arrested, right in front of their children. They were tortured for 6 weeks with repeated demands that they share the location of my family. This humble husband and wife, who were parents of 3 young children, and like my grandparents, were just farmers from a small Polish town, never gave up my family. My grandfather explained to us that the Garulas were ultimately executed publicly for what they did. More recently, Through the always tireless efforts of the museum's Director of Education and Research, Ursula Szapinska, I learned of Roman Segolin, someone my grandparents had never mentioned before. He hid my family under the floor of the small farmhouse he shared with his brother and sister-in-law when he was arrested in a similar roundup. Roman also refused to divulge the whereabouts of my family. Roman, a mere 30 years old, was also executed for hiding my family. Ursula also discovered one of the Garula children is still alive, and she very recently arranged for us to meet with him via Skype. If Roman Segolin, Michal and Katerina Garula, and Ursula are not heroes, then no one is. There are no words to describe what it's like to try to absorb all of this, to know that you would not exist but for the superhuman acts of ordinary individuals. This is what I've been trying to accomplish over the past few weeks as more information has come to light. That intensity is just a part of life as a descendant of survivors. But here's one thing I've learned as I've been thinking. That power to exist, to act, exists in all of us. And that's what my grandparents wanted me to see. Children and grandchildren of survivors are living proof that there will always be hope for a better future. It's why we always have hope, and it's why you all should too. Every time I tell these stories in my family's name and in the names of all the victims and survivors, I am fighting. I'm pushing back against what was done to them. This is why I'm motivated to carry them and their lessons with me. Their message of perseverance and hope is on my shoulders, and I'll always make sure they are heard. Survivors, liberators, and others who are there have always been available to tell their story and to use it to make a better tomorrow. When they are no longer here, that torch gets passed to us. And tonight, we honor those torchbearers and the survivors and victims who inspire them. None of us consider this an obligation. It is an honor. The Florida Holocaust Museum's Legacy Award is given to a person or people who, through actions today, use the lessons of the Holocaust to empower and inspire humanity to create a better tomorrow. And tonight, as we focus on hope for the future, I am so proud to award this year's Legacy Award to the Florida Holocaust Museum's Generations After group. And to accept the award, I'd like to introduce everyone to Leah Davis and Charlene Wygotsky.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate being here tonight. On behalf of all our members, I am honored to accept the Legacy Award. I am truly proud of our Generations After family and for all the diligent work that they do. Though our family histories are stolen by the Holocaust, our parents and grandparents created new legacies here in the U.S. and became integral members of their communities. Thank you so very much for recognizing our efforts to carry on the legacies of the courageous survivors who gave us life.
Thank you so much, Leah. And as we shine a light on the Generations After group tonight, could you tell us a little bit about the origins and the purpose of the Generations After group?
Thank you. I'll be happy to. As children of Jewish Holocaust survivors, we found that our celebration of holidays was different. Most of us did not have grandparents or lots of aunts, uncles at family celebrations. The Generations After group was founded because of our similar backgrounds. Sharing family traditions and how we dealt with them was our common bond. Some of our members started as museum volunteers and docents. Our activities include monthly lunch meetings where we discuss upcoming events and enjoy and our social aspects and get-togethers. We also have book and movie club that quite often now features an author, thanks to Zoom. We always look for ways to celebrate joyous events. Supporting the Holocaust Museum, Florida Holocaust Museum, and their programs is our primary focus.
Thanks very much, Leah. Now, Charlene, who I have to say has known me, and I've known her for a long time because Charlene's mother, Mary Wygotsky, who I still call Miss Wygotsky when I see her, was my kindergarten teacher and is also a survivor. And once she actually said to me, it's in that order, my kindergarten teacher and a survivor, and is probably one of the toughest people I will ever meet in my life. She's an absolute inspiration. I still think about her all the time. Charlene, How does the Generations After group carry on the legacy of survivor parents and grandparents?
Thank you, Michael. We, the second generation, are very much a product of our family's legacy. We share a common history and have an innate perspective on the past. Each survivor's story is unique, and so are the many ways their stories have impacted our lives. We are a living connection to the ghosts of past. The hatred, prejudice, and apathy that our parents endured during the Holocaust forges a testament of survival that is embedded in our lives. As the late Elie Wiesel said in his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, his life mission was to keep memory alive and to fight those who would forget. We, the second generation, have this very important and daunting task to follow suit, including the responsibility to pass these memories to our children so they may pass it to their children. As the chain of memory will be broken with the passing of time, history and its lessons become even more important. The Florida Holocaust Museum, along with their valuable resources, will certainly continue to teach our future generations. Many members of our Generations After group at the museum are joining us tonight in expressing their gratitude for the Legacy Award recognition. We all thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye. The journey from Berlin was difficult for all of us to say goodbye, first of all, to my grandparents. That was very traumatic. And we took a train from Berlin to Italy, and there we picked up the ship. And that was 2 days before my father's date with the Gestapo. So my father was very nervous. And my mother, I didn't know anything about it at the time. I was 9 years old. My sister was 11. Once we got on the ship, my sister and I thought we were on a pleasure cruise because it was first class. My father had bribed the shipping company with so much money to get the tickets, otherwise we wouldn't be able to get on, that we thought we had a wonderful time. It was a Japanese ship. It was very clean. They looked after us beautifully. There were many other, what we were then refugee children on board, and we all played with one another. But all the grown-ups were very nervous. And my mother cried a lot. I remember that because she had just said goodbye to her parents, of course, never to see them again. Coming into Shanghai from the sanitized experience in Germany, first of all, and an even very luxurious trip on this Japanese ship for 4 weeks, it was total chaos out there because we landed in a poor section of town. It was noisy, it was hot, it was crowded, the people running all over the place, total chaos. We didn't know what hit us when we got there. A friend of my father's had found a room for us. And then we didn't have a kitchen or anything. So we went to the relief organizations that were there helping us at the time, American and also some local Jewish and Russian organizations. I called my mother and I said, I'm going out with this crazy Russian. I can't tell you what his name is. I can't pronounce it. She said, be very careful. I'll wait up for you, she says. But anyway, 2 weeks later, we got engaged, and 2 months later, we got married. My mother-in-law had a high-end dress shop in Shanghai, and she had a dress made for me there by hand by Chinese tailors. It was very beautiful, and she said it was just perfect, and I would look like a czarina. She said, this dress will last you for a long time, and your daughters will wear it too, and she was absolutely right. First, we went to Australia for 3 years in 1950 because we had to leave Shanghai then, and everybody had to leave. All my life, I wanted to come to America, and we finally engineered that with the help of my sister who had gotten there before us and who helped get somebody to guarantee for us. And we got to America in 1953. And we landed at the airport in New York after a long, difficult journey. So we were standing around there. We didn't have any money. We had these two babies there. Everybody's tired. And a stranger came up to us and he said, "Are you new in this country?" And we said, "Yes, we are immigrants and we want to make this our country. We've been waiting for this for a long time." And so he got us each a bottle of Coca-Cola, and said, "Welcome to America." And even now, when I talk about it, I get shivers down my back. And I always tell that story to my students when I speak to them, and they understand that so well. And I tell them about how one good deed can really make such an impression. And if you do another good deed for someone else, it just keeps on giving. I'm still sharing the story because I did it in New Jersey. And when I came here 10 years ago, I landed fortunately at the Florida Holocaust Museum, and I started there, and then I just couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop, and they apparently still wanted me. So I kept on going. And I feel it's so important for the younger generation in particular to know what had happened. And no one understands why the Holocaust went on. I still don't quite understand it, but it's a question of hate and anti-Semitism. And that's something that we have to work against all the time. At one point, I decided to add Anna Maria Barenberg's name to the list of Holocaust victims because I was absolutely sure at that time that she had not survived the Holocaust. And I wanted her soul to be remembered. I wanted her name to be remembered. And I had put my parents in and my grandparents and uncles and aunts and everything. But she was very special to me as a child, and she had made some kind of tremendous impression on me that I didn't realize how strong that was until I actually said her name.
The Florida Holocaust Museum closed its doors to the public on March 17, 2020. No visitors, no student tours, no opportunity to have an in-person conversation with a Holocaust survivor. 2 weeks later, we opened up a new museum, a virtual museum, and we're working in partnership with the Florida Department of Education to serve the more than 2.5 million students and teachers who had suddenly been thrust into online education. The supervisor of social studies at the Hillsborough County Public Schools recently announced that no organization had offered them more quality resources, programs, and experiences during the pandemic than the Florida Holocaust Museum. Tens of thousands of people have taken our virtual tours, accessed our online curriculum, and interacted with us through Facebook Live and through special programs. At the same time, we continue to educate remotely in classrooms and work with individual teachers. Enormous credit must be given to the talented museum staff whose creativity and tenacity and just plain hard work made us so successful. But one group of people deserves special recognition for their efforts this past year. These men and women in their 80s and 90s embraced a dizzying array of new technology so that they could continue their important work with students. You must know who I'm talking about. Our Holocaust survivors. Jackie Albin, Roland Levy, Betty Grabinchikoff, Marie Silverman, and Max Weissglass were some of the survivors who spoke with middle school and high school classes in our Conversations with a Survivor program and answered questions via Facebook Live during Testimony Tuesdays. Liesl Schick shared her story with a class while they were on a docent-led virtual tour. Ed Herman shared his story with St. Petersburg College students. And Mary Wygotsky, who will be 96 this year, continues to be our pioneer of new technology. She was the first to speak virtually during a teacher training in Escambia, Florida in 2016. She was our guinea pig when we debuted Skype with the Survivor in 2018. And last week, Mary was the first Holocaust survivor that we interviewed using the cutting-edge filmmaking technology pioneered by USC Shoah Foundation, called Dimensions in Testimony. Aaron Blankenship, Ursula Shapinska and I worked alongside our virtual colleagues at USC Shoah Foundation to ask Mary and to film her answers to thousands of questions about her incredible life. It was a full week of questions. Over the next few months and years, these questions and answers will be used to ensure that future generations will continue to be able to have conversations with and learn from survivors. Like Mary and the 3 other Holocaust survivors who've agreed to be part of this challenging and exhausting process, Ed Herman, Helen Kahan, and Betty Krubinchikov. And here's some really exciting news. We expect to debut this transformative technology inside the museum sometime this year. I invite you to come and experience it. While exciting, Dimensions in Testimony is only one significant initiative coming to the museum. The museum's board of directors, led by the grandson of Holocaust survivors, has courageously embraced a vision that looks to the future to keep the lessons and the voices of the past alive. And there is no time to waste. It is no coincidence that a rise in anti-Semitism is happening as the number of witnesses to the Holocaust grow fewer. 18 months ago, a principal in a Florida high school refused to say that the Holocaust was a factual, historical event. The Claims Conference survey revealed that 1 out of 4 adults between the ages of 18 to 39 believed the Holocaust was a myth, had been exaggerated, or they weren't sure. Our message is being challenged. We must commit to working even harder to make sure that this generation and future generations of students are taught the truth about the Holocaust and taught in relevant and historically accurate ways so that these lessons stay with them the rest of their lives. But we cannot do this without your help. During most of the past year, while we have worked so hard to meet the needs of Florida's students and deliver extraordinary virtual experiences, we have had no admissions or program revenue. In a moment, I'm going to turn things over to my friend Jason to help us with the short fundraising portion of this program. But as I do, I'd like you to keep this in mind. Tonight, you are the most important people here, not us. We need your support to keep the voices and experiences of our Holocaust survivors alive.
Gosh, Beth, thank you so much for those words. And throughout this program tonight, you've heard all about the amazing things that the Florida Holocaust Museum does here in this community. But I also want you to know that never before has the financial support been so important. And the funds raised during this Two Life Gala, more crucial. What we're going to do now during this part of the program, which we call the Bid from the Heart, is we're going to ask for donations. And to make a donation tonight, it's very, very simple. All you have to do is to make sure that you are registered for the event. If you are watching this program, plain and simple, you're registered if you're using the link that you were sent. If you're watching this program using anyone else's link that they were sent, we'd love for you to get registered as well to have that full immersive experience. How do you do that? Simply go to the web address you see right there on your screen, fhm2life.org. If you go to that web address, you'll quickly get registered so you can have, as I mentioned, that full immersive experience of this Two Life Gala. Because our goal over the next 7 or 8 or 9 minutes is to raise $100,000 for the Florida Holocaust Museum. And it's very simple how it's going to be done. We're going to call out some dollar amounts from here in our studio. You'll notice on the device that you're watching the program a screen that looks just like this, with buttons that all you have to do is tap to make your donation. Please understand that if you're watching this program in full screen mode, just minimize that video player so that you can see everything around the screen for you. Understand that in the Bid from the Heart, you don't get offered any sort of auction prize or any sort of gimmicks or games or contest. We're asking you to bid from the bottom of your heart directly to our mission. The way it's going to work, as I mentioned, is we're going to call out our dollar amounts and then work our way down. When I reach the dollar amount that you're comfortable and able to give, you hit that dollar amount on your device. We'll see it here in the studio. The donations have already been rolling in throughout the program. We will acknowledge you. We will celebrate you. Our small studio audience, which is about 5 people deep, is going to go absolutely crazy as we raise money for the Florida Holocaust Museum. As I mentioned, the goal is $100,000. There is also a feature on your device that says chat in the top right-hand corner. If you want to chat with each other, if you want to chat with us here in the studio, feel free to drop a message in that chat and celebrate the donations as they come in. My first ask tonight in the Bid from the Heart is a level that, quite frankly, will help offset much of the technology costs that the Florida Holocaust Museum has had to incur this year. It's a $10,000 ask. At the $10,000 level, you will preserve Holocaust survivor testimonies, and you'll bring those testimonies to the testimonials in the classrooms. You can see on the screen there how the donations have already started to come in. We will be acknowledging them and thanking you as your donation level comes in. But our first ask this evening is at that $10,000 level. Is there a $10,000 donor out there who will tap that button on their device and make that contribution? We're at almost $30,000 already. Please understand that when you make these donations, people from the museum, the staff from the museum will be following up with you to coordinate payment for these donations. Is there a $10,000 donor out there to get us started? How about a $5,000 donor? Is there a $5,000 donor to get this Bid from the Heart on a springboard to success? At the $5,000 level, you'll update the materials in one teaching trunk. We talk about teaching trunks all the time. I think we just got a $5,000 donation, huh? Let's celebrate that. I'd love to see that. Senator and Mrs. Jeffrey Brandis are in at $5,000. I love to see that. That donation made in honor of Melissa Michelle. Who else at $5,000? There's another one. Andrea Graham and Jeff Simon are in at $5,000. We are at $45,240. Who else at $5,000? Who else will tap their donation button? We just got another one from Sarah Golding. Share at $5,000. We are at $55,000 in donations. Are there other $5,000 donors out there? Who else? Debbie Sembler is in at $5,000. Here's another one. Louis Orloff is a $5,000 donor. How about that? We're up over $55,000. So if you all can do me a favor and help keep track of the donations that we take that don't make it into Qtego, because I want to add those to our total at the end. So we have Debbie's at $5,000. Anyone else at $5,000? Oh, Debbie's did make it in there. I see at $5,000. Wonderful. So we mentioned Sarah Golding Share and Debbie Sembler and Louis Orloff. We also mentioned Senator and Mrs. Jeffrey Brandis at $5,000 and Andrea Graham and Jeff Simon at $5,000. Anyone else at $5,000 before we move on to the next level? You look at that screen right there and you see we're at $61,690. Is this another one that's just come in? Do we want to check on this one? We said that one, so if we can do a check with her, and sometimes people want to donate twice, but anyone else at the $5,000 level? Our next level is the $2,500 level. At the $2,500 level, what you will be doing is you will be supporting the technology costs for the Speak Up, Speak Now program. Where are my donors at $2,500 who want to underwrite the technology costs for 10 classes of virtual tours and conversations with a survivor? We do have a new $5,000 donor. Irene and Steve Weiss are in at $5,000. How about that? And then you know what? I asked for $2,500, but Robin Warren said, I got your $2,500. We're in at $3,000 from Robin Warren. Thank you. And here's another $5,000 donation that's just come in from Margie Green, is a $5,000 donor. Thank you. And you know what? We heard from this wonderful couple during our pre-show, and they have stepped up with a $3,000 donation themselves. Rachel and Donald Worthington in at $3,000. Thank you to the Worthingtons. Who else? I got that one already. Oh, that's a new one. All right. So Irene and Steve Weiss are in at $5,000. We'll applaud that one, right? And Marion Winters is in at $5,000. Is a $5,000 donor. We love to see that. All right, Madeleine and Jerry McDaniel are in at $2,500, folks. I see it that this heart is starting to fill up close to our so-called goal, but we are about to blow this out of the water. So we don't want to celebrate too much because look what just happened. We got a $10,000 donation from Helen Levine is in at $10,000, huh? How about that? Who else at $2,500 or $3,000 or $5,000 or that $10,000 donation that came in from Helen a moment ago? Who else will help us creep over that $100,000 level? Anyone else at $2,500 and above? I'm okay with a little bit of silence because I know there are people at home who are thinking about it. They got their finger on their button. We're going to get to that one in just a moment. Anyone else at $2,500 and above? Yeah, we got that. So here's what we'll do. We're over $100,000, but now I'm going to ask, so this is probably not another one. I don't think I'm going to announce that one, right? All right. So here's what we'll do. I'm going to ask now for the $1,000 level. And what we'll do now, if you can, let's go to the other screen first, Laura, before we start at the $1,000 level. Because we've received some $1,000 donations earlier on in the program. I want to make sure we acknowledge as many of those as we can. So if we can sort by dollar amount there, and we'll call them out. And there's a lot of them, so I want to make sure everyone gets the recognition they need and deserve. How about that? We got a Debbie Berner was in at $3,600, $3,600. So I love to see that. Now scroll up for me a little bit on that one right there. Perfect. Oh, you know what? Let's do that as well because we've got the $1,800 level. So whether it's $1,800 or $1,000, understand that both of those dollar amounts are there on your phone or on your device. So if you so choose to go with go with the $1,800, you can do that as well. Just like Lisa, I'm going to make sure I get this one right. Smajovitz did at $1,800. Debbie Rindy Hoffman did $1,800. And now here are my $1,000 donors. Murray Bring was a $1,000 donor. Lois Pardal is a $1,000 donor. Andrea and Matt Silverman are in at $1,000. Dana Justice is in at $1,000. Amy Southard is a $1,000 donor. David Abelson is in at $1,000. Keep them going. Mitchell Lowenstein is in at $1,000. Folks, look at our total up there. We are currently at $118,544. Now let's go back to the MC screen and I'll look at that one as the $1,000 donations that have come in. Mike Eigel is in at what was that, at $1,800? Yeah, no, he's in at $2,000. Mike Eagle, thank you so much. Anita Treiser Bernstein is in at $1,000. Richard Rappaport is in at $1,800. Is the bell busy? Let's go with that bell, right? I'd love to see that. How about this one? David and Myrna Band are in at $7,500. That is awesome. Diana Sager is in at $1,800. Jan and Craig Scher are in at $1,000. Thank you to the shares. Mary Kay Vona is in at $1,000. Sandy and Jay Epstein are in at $1,500. Thank you to the Epsteins. Who else at $1,000 and above? Anyone else? There's another one at $1,500. Leonard and Barbara McHugh are in at $1,500. So Leonard and Barbara, thank you so much. Anyone else at $1,000 and above? We're at $123,744. And what I will tell you is, as you all are thinking about making these donations, Chris, am I going to throw you all off if I ask to go full screen with me for a moment? Is that going to totally confuse everybody? Because one of the beauties of this set that we're on right now is you see, I'm going to step out even the way a little bit. You see the pictures of the survivors floating by. And that is what we are doing here. We are making sure we never forget. We are making sure that these faces are remembered forever. And the story of the Holocaust is remembered forever. So as you make those donations and they keep coming in, Jeffrey Supawit is in at $1,000. Thank you to Jeffrey at the $1,000 level. Anyone else? Anyone else at the $1,000 level? We're going to call all those donation levels out as well. You see the names scrolling on the screen right there. You can keep those going and keep celebrating those. Anyone else at $1,000? How about Nancy and Will Greenberg are now $1,000 donors, right? Who else at the $1,000 level? Liesel Schick, a Holocaust survivor herself, has donated $1,000. Liesel, thank you so much for your $1,000 donation. Anyone else at $1,000? I've got this screen here that gives me great information. I've got other screens over here. We got all the information coming in. I know Pamela and George Campbell are in at $1,000. How about that? How about that at $1,000? All right. Alice Gross is a $1,000 donor. They keep coming in. We are over $125,000. Anyone else at $1,000? David Barris is a $1,000 donor. Ronnie Eagle is in at $1,000. They keep coming. We're at $128,744. We're over $130,000 now. $130,744. Anyone else at $1,000? David Alvarez was at $1,000. Did I miss that one? Yeah. David Alvarez at $1,000. David, thank you so much. And Denise Friedman is a $1,000 donor. We're at $133,744. Carnot and Alice Nelson are in at $1,000. How about that, right? Folks, understand that this mission of the Holocaust Museum reaches right through that camera and right into your homes. Because when we do this event in person, you can feel the emotion in the room. It's palpable. But because this is such a strong and important mission to people in this community, not only in the community of Tampa Bay, around the state, not only in the Jewish community, but the community that wants to stop genocides forever, to make sure that people never forget. We're creeping up at $135,000. Michael Southard is in at $1,000. How about that, right? Where are my donors at $500? At the $500 level, let me tell you some of the things you'll be doing there. At the $500 level, you will be sponsoring one student for the Anne Frank Humanitarian Award, which you're going to hear about in just a few moments. You'll also help support teacher trainings, because that's really one of the main things the Holocaust Museum does as well. They teach the teachers. How important is that? So can we go to the other screen? And I want to look at some of the $500 donors that have come in throughout the program. And there have been a lot of them. I know there was a $700 donation that I saw trickle in, which was great. Tom and Karen Burgesson gave $700, so thank you very much to them. My $500 donors, I'm going to scroll through them, make sure they get mentioned. You got to scroll down there a long way. I love it because we got so many thousands. Perfect. Scroll up just a little bit more. I got the 700 there. So Claire Sadie is in at $500. Quinn and Deborah Ferguson are in at $500. Julia Taxon is a $500 donor. Tanjua Williams is a $500 donor. Deborah Sipowit is in at $500. That's right, keep those applause going. Laura Salzer is in at $500. Debbie and Fred Hoffman are $500 donors for the Florida Holocaust Museum. Yael Schroeder is in at $500. Sandra Diamond gave $500 tonight. Folks, we are almost at $140,000. Alan Weiss at $500. Trey Dixon at $500. Nellie Kuzam and Morris Silberman is in at $500. Gina Siebert is a $500 donor. Sandy Mermelstein is in at $500. Folks, you see that number over there is at $138,864, but we got some work to do. Linda Whitley is in at $500. Stacy Conroy at $500. Ezra Singer at $500. Michelle Lynn at $500. Arlen Abelson is in at $300. So who else at the $500 donation level or above? Anyone else at $500 or above? Nat Dulliner? Yeah. Nat Dulliner at $1,800. Nat, thank you so much. That's right. We're at $138,964. And you see those names. Michelle Rook is a $500 donor. Awesome, Michelle, thank you. So now let's go back to the MC screen, and I think we'll take them in live as they come in. Steve Schwarsky is in at $500. I see it there now, right? Harry Human is a $500 donor. How about Rabbi Joshua Lobel from Temple B'nai Israel in Clearwater, a $720 donor? Rabbi, thank you so much. Who else? Anyone else at $500 and above? Where are my donors at $250 and above? I do know some donations have come in throughout the program at the $250 donation. Brian and Gilby Campbell made 2 donations at $250, each of them in memory. The first one of Sam and Cecilia Kamens, and the second one in memory of Edward and Ann Kamens, both at $250. We're at $139,464. Who's going to help us get above $140,000? Where are my $250 donors and above? So let's go ahead and switch the screen again, and let's go ahead and look at the donations. Yeah, let's start right there. I mentioned, I mentioned one other right there. Arlen Abelson, I mentioned that one at $300. I mentioned the Campbells, those 2 donations in honor. Gilby Campbell also came back with another $250. So the Campbells in for a total of $750. That's right. I'll rattle off these rest of these 250s. Etta Donnell in, it looks like that was 3 times at $250. We'll check that one. Scroll up a little bit there for me, please. I'm sorry, scroll down is what I should have said, wrong way, right? Cindy Spahn at $250, wonderful, thank you. Scroll a little bit more there. Richard Russell at $250, Stephen Kreitzer at $250, John Elliott is a $250 donor, Bo Brault is at $250, Sharon Scott at $250, Carrie O'Brien at $250, Barb Feller at $250, Mara, I'm gonna get this one, De Bartolomeo, close enough, hopefully at $250. Leah Shernan at $250. Rhea Perlstein at $250. Molly Ald at $250. Carrie O'Brien at $250. Sharon Scott at $250. Alec Maddow at $205. And Susan Betzer at $200. Renee Walter at $250. Renee Walter at $250. I love that. Anyone else at $250 and above?
Yeah, we just got another 5,000.
Yeah? Uma Desamine at $500. Awesome. So now I see these right here, right? But we also have, so is this 5,000 that I see here? That's a new one, right? Another $5,000 from the Semblers. Mel Sembler at $5,000. How about that? Tracy Lynn at $250. Folks, we are at $145,000, $814. We've taken lots of $100 donations throughout the program. I'm going to encourage you now to put in any donation, whether it be $100 or some certainly want to go that $180 level for that high. Who else is in at $180 or $100? Who else would like to get that donation in now? We're at $145,914. Other $100 donations are coming in. Alan Froelich is in at $100. Anyone else at $100? I know Janet Avalone gave $100 and Rita Jacobson gave $100. Who's going to help us get over $145,000? Remember, all you have to do is tap that button on your phone. Folks, what I want to tell you is that this is the time. What's it?
I got a text
okay.
from Rita Pardal for $200.
Rita Pardal is in at $200. So Rita, thank you so much. Folks, again, lots of technology going on over here. But what I want to tell you, what I want to announce here today is that at this point, you can put in any dollar donation at any amount. On your bidding device, whether it be your phone, your laptop, your TV screen, whatever it may be, there's a button there that just says Submit Donation next to an empty box. Stephen and Nancy Beckerman came in at $500. But now's the time to put in a donation at any dollar amount, whether it's $40 or $40,000. Now's the time to put that donation in and let us add it to our totals. So I'll look over at this screen one more time and see if there's any more that I need to announce. But believe me, we can keep taking donations throughout the rest of the program. Because what I want to do here is that what I want to do is celebrate. I want to celebrate what we just did for the Florida Holocaust Museum in this crazy virtual world that we're in, is we just raised $146,664. How about that? Now, what I will also tell you is that what we did in totality for the sponsorship dollars before the event, plus the Bid from the Heart dollars that continue coming in, is we were able to raise, you want to do a drum roll? Can you get a drum roll? Right, we'll do it right there. So we were able to raise $555,000, right? How about that? That is an amazing accomplishment. Please understand that throughout the rest of the program, as you so choose to make those donations, and we see more donations continue to come in, please continue to make those donations for the Florida Holocaust Museum. Ladies and gentlemen, the program, as they say, is still just getting started. We've got a lot of momentum to go here. because the next part of the program is the part of the program where we honor 20 years of the Anne Frank Humanitarian Award, an award that started with just an idea, but now is an award that hundreds of young people in our community aspire to receive. And later on this summer, 93 more will call themselves Anne Frank Humanitarian Award recipients.
This year is the 20th anniversary of the Anne Frank Humanitarian Awards.
My daughters came home one day and said, you know, why are they focusing on just the bad things that kids are doing or the crazy things that kids are doing? There's so many wonderful kids in our school, young people, that are doing fantastic things. My parents were survivors, and they were in Denmark and were ferried over to Sweden by Danish fishermen and taken in by the Swedish people. These people were upstanders, and one of the things that we try to do with the Anne Frank Humanitarian Award is to recognize upstanders, people who do incredible things.
I was smart. I was accustomed to receiving awards for being smart. That was probably the first time I received an award for being a good person. So as a young person, being told that it's important that you do this was instrumental in what has become my career.
There have been so many volunteers that have helped from the very beginning with the Anne Frank Humanitarian Award. Gail Sirens was among the first volunteers. I think this really aligns with who she is.
I keep coming back for a lot of reasons, but you know, you become really addicted to these young people, each and every one of them who have their own particular story to tell about why they wanted to be somebody significant in their community, doing important things, making the world a better place. How can you not enjoy being part of something like that? And story after story, when we would have these events, were just so compelling. And it just makes your day. It makes you have faith in the world that these are young people. These are high school kids. They have figured out a lot of stuff that it took a bunch of us probably a lot longer to figure out as adults, but they're amazing.
The name of the award, because you know the history behind it by that time that you're in high school, and you know what the connotation of that means. It's not only an honor to get an award like that, you understand what responsibility it holds to, right? It's not just an award that you get, you celebrate, and you leave it behind or you put it on your shelf.
And the hope is that when they go forward into their lives, that they'll take those wonderful characteristics and that love that they have for helping other people, and they'll continue to use who they are to make the world better.
The words we use have changed over the years, but the values that I hold have not. And so my work has remained consistent from my high school years to what I'm doing now and what I hope to do for the rest of my career.
So I'm a mom to 3 kids now, and the ideals and the sense of humanitarianism that my parents instilled in me, I think that's my most important job and the most powerful job that I'll have is to instill that in my children. So it lives on from generation to generation and the door of a door.
The Anne Frank Humanitarian Award for 20 years. Congratulations.
Husband, father, family man, rabbi, researcher, historian, writer, director, award-winning filmmaker, and avid Dodgers fan can all describe Dr. Michael Berenbaum, tonight's honoree. But one word sums up his life's work: teacher. Michael has dedicated his life so that we may never forget the Holocaust, but also so that we can teach others in order to prevent future genocides. As the project director of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, his greatest professional accomplishment, he said the following in an interview, quote, Plus, we had one more thing which is very important, and important to the whole history program, which is the single most important thing. We had the voices of those who were actually there, and they could provide not only what, where, and the factual historical, but they could provide the ethos of what was involved. Now, that capacity we're not going to totally understand for centuries. As an author, he has published hundreds of papers and 22 books, including The World Must Know, which has been a staple of our museum's docent class since our inception, a book that has been praised as a majestic and profoundly moving history of the Holocaust. It is a must-reading for anyone who would like to be more human in the post-Holocaust world. Michael has given us the tools for the great task in front of all of us as teachers, given the results of a 2018 survey surrounding the Holocaust. The survey found that 41% of American adults and 66% of millennials did not know what Auschwitz was. In addition, 22% of millennials said they had never heard of the Holocaust. The last living survivor of the Holocaust will soon die. Then we will go from living memory to historical memory, says Michael. It is our charge to be a living memory of what happened. We must each continue to tell the stories and to ensure they live on for generations. Tonight's award is to honor Michael's dedication to teaching members of all races and cultures the inherent worth and dignity of human life. But it is also a symbolic reminder of the work that remains to be done. Genocide did not end after Nuremberg. Michael's work reminds us why education is a vital piece of hope for a better future. Many years ago, in the hills of Judea, a young boy was learning to drive a stick shift. With him was his father, Michael, and my dad. Michael told me my dad was very brave. I said he had practice. He taught me to drive too. It is with immense pride, on behalf of my parents, to honor this year's Lowenberg Humanitarian Award recipient, Dr. Michael Berenbaum.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to receive this award, most especially to have my name linked with Walter's name. Walter was a longtime friend. We had a memorable trip. Oh, maybe at the turn of the decade, maybe even at the turn of the century, maybe even a little bit earlier, when we went to Poland and then to see the camps and the destruction, to visit the ghettos and to encounter the remnant of the living Jewish community, and then went on to Israel to see the rebirth of the Jewish people in their homeland. We had a very special day in which Walter proved to be daring and fascinating. I had my son with me who wanted to learn how to drive a shift car. So we rented a shift car. We went into the Judean desert. We visited down at En-Gedi and Masada. We went for a dip in the Dead Sea. And throughout, my son was learning to drive, and Walter was enormously patient with him, teaching him and critiquing him in a way that I could not. That cemented a friendship, and I've been privileged to know Walter for these many years and to admire his work, and now to have his name linked with mine and the Lowenberg name, because Walter and his wife were a team. To have the Lowenberg name linked with mine is a very special pleasure and a very special honor. Let me say that the second reason I'm very excited to receive this award is because of the importance of your work. I want to say something about the importance of Holocaust education, but to say it with disappointment. I had a dream that someday I could be irrelevant. I study a past of destruction, a past of evil, a past of racism and genocide, of anti-Semitism, and of the lowest humanity could reach. And I would hope that 21st century humanity could look back on that past and say we could never do it. Yet with each passing year, I find that the sadness of our task is that our task has become more urgent, more important, because the issues we raise throughout the museum are ever growing in their importance. Let me cite three very specific examples. Years ago, we did not speak about the fragility of democracy, about the dangers of polarization, about what happened between 1918 and 1933 that took a democratic society of the Weimar Republic and forced it into an authoritarian, ultimately totalitarian government. And yet, all of a sudden, this issue becomes important not only in the United States, but throughout the world. Let's take a look at another aspect of it. You know, the Jews were the central victims of the Holocaust, but they were not the only victims of Nazi racism. The Nazis attacked some people for what they did, trade unionists, political dissidents. They attacked other people for what they refused to do. Jehovah's Witnesses were victimized because they would not swear allegiance to the state. They wouldn't say the word Heil Hitler. Further, they attacked other people because they were homosexuals, they were gay. They attacked some because they were Roman Sinti. They attacked the Jews because of the fact not only that they were, but their grandparents were Jewish, and they want to eradicate all Jewish blood. We live in a world in which we have rising anti-Semitism, but the rising anti-Semitism is the context, the terrible context of an increase in the permissibility of the expression of hatred, and an increase in hatred toward all minority groups so that the Jews may feel themselves targeted. But sadly, we are not alone in that targeting. Asian Americans have only experienced it in the last couple of weeks. We've experienced it with African Americans in the crisis that we had this summer. We've experienced it with people of color. We've experienced it with women. And we've seen the rise also of white supremacy, which is based on the incredible notion of, in its own way, a master race. Thirdly, 25 years ago, we worried about Holocaust denial. And what we saw on January 6th is far more dangerous. And that is pride in the fact that the Holocaust took place. Somebody wore an Auschwitz staff T-shirt. And also something I didn't know about, but the notion of a T-shirt which said 6MWE, 6 million wasn't enough. In other words, instead of denying the Holocaust, they wish it were to be more successful and increase. That gives a greater urgency to the work we do. And that's one of the reasons why I respect the work that the Florida Holocaust Museum has done for this very many years. And I've seen it grow and evolve and change and develop. And I'm proud to associate my name with your works, your achievement, and to share the mutual responsibility and the work that we have together. Again, my dream is that we weren't needed, but my sense is that we are needed now more than ever before. Thank you very much.
So Elizabeth calls me and she said, "Are you home?" I said, "Why?" She said, "I have news for you." I said, "Well, tell me now," because I was in a store. I'm out there shopping for pumpkin pie, mind you. And she says, "They found Anna Marie." And you know, it didn't sink in. All I said was, "Do you want any pumpkin pie?" Well, as you know, the Shoah Foundation, a lady called Ita Gordon was the hero in this whole piece, you know. She pulled it together that she had heard Anna Marie speak somewhere in Chile, in Santiago. She didn't mention my name, but her name was Anna Marie Warenberg. And it's an unusual name, you know. Not everybody has that. And something made her look into the websites and into the Shoah testimonies, and she eventually found my name in it because Anna Marie had not given testimony. I gave testimony in 1997, and I had talked about Anna Marie there. One particular girlfriend, whose name I always mention, can I mention her here? When I talk about my life. Her name was Annemarie Warenberg, and I never knew what happened to her, and I'm always wondering if maybe she's somewhere and she can hear this.
And I can see Betty.
Hello.
Hello, Betty. Can you see me?
Hallo.
Und ich sehe auch Anna-Maria.
Ja, wir können uns sehen.
Wir können uns sehen?
Ich kann sie sehen.
Gut. Anna-Maria, kann sie auch Betty sehen?
Ja, ich kann Betty sehen, natürlich. Aber heute bin ich Betty. Vorher war ich Ilse. Du warst so Ilse? Ja. Wir haben uns ein bisschen verändert, nicht? Ein kleines bisschen, ja. Ja. Wie findest du denn das, Ilse? Das ist doch ein Wunder, was uns passiert. Ich bin so, ich habe gar keine Worte dafür, dass wir nach diesen vielen Jahren, über 80 Jahre, wieder zusammenkommen. Es ist wie ein Geschenk. As soon as she started talking with me and I talked with her, there was a connection there right away. Das ist dein Bild. Das bin ich. Habe ich das geschrieben? Weißt du, was du mir geschrieben hast? Nein, was? Wenn du einst in späteren Jahren dieses Büchlein nimmst zur Hand, denke dran, wie schön es war, als wir haben uns gekannt. And look what we did. Look what Anna-Marie and I did. We've built these families. We've got all these descendants here, and they're going to carry on what we started. I'm quite sure of it.
Like my sister Elizabeth has, I have taken Mom to many of these places where she has spoken. So when the time comes when she decides to say, I've done enough, I don't want to do this anymore, I think that I could do this. I feel like I've heard the story. I can't be her, but I think that we are definitely ready as that next generation to continue to tell the story, because as Mom says many, many times, we never want to forget what happened and why this story has come to light in the way it has. And we always want to remember. And so I think we can keep telling that story.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight and supporting the important mission of the Florida Holocaust Museum. There were a few more donors that donated during the last session. I want to recognize them. Amanda Sobel at $300, Joe Meschel at $100, Ed and Helena Herman at $500, Debbie Kopernick at $250, Judy Marcus at $1,000, Mark Boys at $500, Linda and Stan Reimer at $500, Heidi and Fred Sherman at $250, Alan Baumstein at $500, and Amanda Saft at $1,000. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for making this such an incredibly successful To Life during what has been an extraordinarily challenging year. It's incredibly meaningful how much your support has done for all of us. As we say goodnight, I want to thank the people here at DCE Productions who've helped us create this virtual event. And I also want to say another thank you to our sponsors and donors and to our absolutely terrific To Life committee. Good night, and thank you, everyone.